so much, everyone, for staying with us. If there's one thing that a lot of people have agreed, either those who are responsible in making it available and those who are on the receiving side, is the fact that electricity is very important, not only for our livelihoods, but also for business and commercial purposes. For many, many years, over 40 years now, Nigeria is unable to boast of a constant electricity. But the president of the day, Bola Tinubu, as part of his campaign promises, said that there will be availability of power supply in Nigeria. And part of what he said, quote, during the campaign, he says, electricity will become more accessible and affordable to businesses and homes alike. Power generation should nearly double and transmission and distribution networks improved. We will encourage states to develop local sources as well. In Nigeria today, there are different arms to getting power supply either into our homes or into businesses. There's a GENCO part of it, there's a disco, a transmission, generation, and in all of these elements that makes up what you see in your home providing electricity, other than your generator or your solar system, is the roles and the different compartments and how it all comes together. But the biggest or the largest in terms of capacity at all of these generating companies is the Niger Delta Power Holding Company. It has 10 power plants spread across the southern part of Nigeria. And it's interesting that it's a woman that is heading that company, which is owned by 3 tiers of government, the federal government, the state, and the local government. But how much of that capacity, because they have about 30-something% of what Nigeria will say it is what it needs in terms of power consumption or power generation in Nigeria. Engineer Jennifer Adigije is my guest tonight on the program. She's the managing director of the Niger Delta Power Holding Company of Nigeria. Thank you so much for joining us, MD, today.
Thank you very much for having me, Michelle.
It's interesting. How do you feel? An engineer wearing hats in the field where men are usually dominating, and you are also leading perhaps the biggest GENCO in the whole of sub-Saharan Africa. How does it feel? Absolutely.
It's very challenging, and it's also very rewarding, you know, because myself and my team, we came prepared for the job. As you know, NDPHC is the government-owned generation utility company with a mandate to implement the NIPP, which was a fast-track initiative of the government to scale power generation very significantly, as well as to enhance the associated transmission and distribution networks that would ensure that we deliver cost-effective electricity to the last mile. And we're not losing sight of this. And it's also interesting to know that, you know, Mr. President, in his 8-point agenda, you know, the power sector is a priority area. And as NDPHC, we have a role to play to advance Mr. President's reform agenda, and we're positioning very strongly under my leadership.
Are your shoulders aching you right now?
Absolutely not.
So, on a lighter note, the reasons why I'm asking is that a lot of people will think that if the power sector in Nigeria will function well, there's a role that NDPHC holds in the sense that, just tell us what the capacity of the NDPHC, beyond what I've said, 10 power plants, that's the largest, followed by Egbe. I mean, that has about 6, isn't it?
Yeah.
So you have the largest burden in delivering powers into the homes and businesses in Nigeria.
I don't think it's the largest burden, you know, because the responsibility is shared, you know, amongst all the sector players and stakeholders. Yes, at NDPHC, we have the largest fleet of generating units, 10 power plants with 28 gas-fired turbines and 3 steam turbines. And so that's an installed mechanical capacity of 3,500 megawatts. As you know, as at date, you know, the installed generation capacity in the entire country is about 14,000 megawatts. So if we have 3,500, it means that, you know, that accounts for about 25% of the GENCO space. So we're the backbone, actually, and the GENCO of last resort. And that's why under my leadership, you know, I came up with a strategic implementation plan to ensure that as we ramp up generation capacity, as you may know, in 8 months, I've been able to restore 6 generating units. which accounts for about 800 megawatts, added mechanical availability to the grid. And so...
your original, before you came into office, was about 1,000 plus.
Well, below 1,000, but now we have a mechanical availability of almost 2,000 megawatts that we can put. Yes.
So it means at a date.
Yes.
So it means that there is the possibility, based on the capacity to transmit, right?
Absolutely.
You have been able to provide more capacity in generation.
Yes.
But then the other side of it, on the other arm,
yes,
whether or not they are able to push it out. So that's enormous, isn't it?
Yeah, because it's the way power generation works is, it's contingent upon the midstream and the downstream, because generation is driven by a number of factors. For instance, the demand from the downstream electricity market drives generation, as well as the transmission availability to evacuate the power from the plants and the capacity to wheel that power through the grid to the last mile. So these are really the big elephants, in the power sector.
So you have Egbema, Sapele, Olorunshogo, Omotosho. These are big power plants in Nigeria. And there are those who will say some of the industrial hubs of Nigeria are also within this belt. There are a lot of those who have the impression that you only cover the Niger Delta, but it's interesting that you do a lot, because Olorunshogo and Omotosho are not in the Niger Delta. But give us because you were in the news recently, to the fact that you were talking about your encumbrances, the hindrances in helping you to deliver on your promises. Part of it is debt. Who is owing you money? You said about 600 billion naira is being owed. And I'm going to come to the difficult question, where Nigerians have a high expectation based on the promises of President Bola Tinubu, and you have the logo of President Bola Tinubu on your head. You are carrying the burden of the Bola Tinubu promise on your head and the burden of power generation on your shoulder. But the fact that 600 billion naira debt is affecting electricity generation, that is the big headline. Who is owing this money?
Well, it's combined. It's combined because we have customers that are government customers, and then we also have private customers in terms of off-takers, bilateral customers, eligible customers that are also owing. So combined, yes, we're being owed about 600 billion. About 400 billion is being owed by the government, through the bulk electricity trading company. As you know, the bulk electricity trading company, prior to the passing of the Electricity Act 2023, had the exclusive trading rights, to purchase electricity from us in bulk and sell to the discos. However, because of the dynamics of the markets, as you know, the debt was accumulated basically primarily from two sources, from tariff shortfalls and from market shortfalls. Tariff shortfalls, as we know, and the Honorable Minister has really been championing such a noble cause, because the electricity that we've consumed over the years hasn't been cost reflective. And so there are tariff shortfalls. And then market shortfalls also arising from the complexities in the electricity market, the losses, the discos are not able to remit optimally. So when you combine the tariff shortfalls and the market shortfalls, who bears that burden? It's typically the GENCOs that bear that burden, because our invoices, or the invoices that we issue to the bulk electricity trading company, are not settled fully. Prior to the implementation of the cost reflective tariff on Band A, only 10% of the invoices that we present to the bulk electricity trading company are actually settled by the government. Yes, but with the passing of the Electricity Act and then the implementation of the Band A, which actually account for 15% of the market, the sector liquidity ramped up from 1 trillion to 1.7 trillion, which is 70% increase by simply implementing a cost-reflective tariff on 15% of the market. So I really want to commend the Honorable Minister of Power, Dr. Adiba Adelabu, for the boldness and the courage to effect this policy that has saved the GENCOs from collapse. Because so now we're able to get about 30% of invoice settlement on the invoices that we issue, and that has also helped our liquidity. Before that, we were unable to meet our operational and OPEX and CAPEX obligations, but now we're able to, develop a coping mechanism, and we're surviving.
So if those the 600 billion, part of which 400 billion is a debt being owed by federal, state, and local government, is that right? Is the local government
no,
inclusive?
No.
It's only
By
the federal
bulk,
government.
yes.
But yeah. So if those debts are paid, interestingly, they are the biggest shareholder. I mean, I guess they hold about almost 40-something% of the shareholding in the company. So if they pay, how much of work would that do for you? How much of benefit would that be?
Oh, it would do a lot. I mean, as you know, our power plants are gas-fired. And so what that means is that natural gas is my feedstock. That's my intake. And gas is not cheap, right? I require 25 million scoop of gas to fire a unit every day. And gas is priced in US dollars. Gas is
Where do you get the gas supply from?
From the gas that's available on best endeavor basis, on the gas across the pipelines from NGIC, we get gas, which comes in through our gas receiving station into the power plants. And there's a trading meter there, and so we know how much is consumed. And every day to fire a unit at optimal load, we require about 25 million scoop of gas, which is priced at about $2.4 per MMBTU. So you do the math and figure out how much I'm indebted to our gas suppliers. So that would help us settle some of our gas debts. And also, NDPHC is the only entity in the gas to electricity ecosystem with the mandate to carry out intervention projects across the value chain. So we've carried out a number of projects across transmission, distribution. Like I said to you earlier, our philosophy is end-to-end. So we are able to execute projects that would ensure that we're able to make the necessary impact. It's part of our mandate. So we have a lot of stranded projects that we're unable to complete because of paucity of funds and because of the liquidity crisis. But I mean, in spite of this doesn't deter us. We've completed, under my leadership, we've completed some transmission line projects and some distribution projects, high impact projects, that would ensure that the common good of Nigerians are met.
There are those who doubted your ability and capacity because you've been touted to say, oh, she doesn't have the leadership capacity. Oh. What would you say to those who think that you cannot do it, that you don't have what it takes to lead NDPHC? What would you say you have done differently to add value?
I just let my performance speak for me. I've been on the job, and the milestones that have been set, we've steadily met them. And then we came up with a winning plan. And, with the support of my team, I have a wonderful team of executive directors that have been supporting me, and the staff as well. I communicated my vision as soon as I came, and it cascades down, and every staff of the company has been very supportive. And that vision is anchored on 3 pillars, which is basically to optimize our generation capacity to earn more revenues for the company, to optimize our processes to drive operational efficiency, and lastly, to leverage technology and human capital to maintain transformation, organizational transformation over time. And so far, we've steadily achieved all the milestones. Like I mentioned, we've recovered units, we've recovered assets, and we've been able to diversify our streams of income. The Electricity Act also enables us now to be able to transact bilaterally, with off-takers and eligible customers, and that has also improved our liquidity.
Let's break down the English and the technicalities of it. And it comes to one thing. Power, electricity in the homes and businesses of Nigerians. As the MD of NDPHC, what have you added differently since you got into office in terms of capacity?
In terms of capacity, like I mentioned to you, recovering units and enhancing generation availability is a whole lot.
So you moved from less than 1,000?
Oh yes, to 2,000, about 2,000 megawatts mechanically available as at date. But a significant portion of that capacity is stranded because of a number of limitations midstream and downstream.
So you have the capacity, out of the over 14,000, you have the capacity to do over 2,000.
About 2,000.
About 2,000.
Yes.
But even at that, if you push out, it's not up to you to be able to deliver that almost 2,000 in the homes and businesses. No, it's left now to the transmission to do that, the end part of it. But you mentioned recently some of the problems you had. You said gas shortages is also part of your problem. What exactly in this link, or what is the missing link in that?
Well, because of the liquidity and cash flow crisis, we're not able to procure as much gas volumes as we would require. So, which is why I said to you, so power generation is contingent on several factors: gas availability, gas supply, even gas infrastructure challenges. For instance, I have a power plant in Calabar as we speak. There was a major vandalization on the gas pipeline, which has constrained us from taking up that gas optimally. And in fact, the company has had to declare a force measure. So these are limitations that constrain us from delivering optimally.
In this age of green energy and the advocacy for alternatives, are you thinking of alternatives?
Absolutely. It's in the master plan of the NIPP. You know, the NIPP phase 1 was to implement the gas-fired power plants. The NIPP phase 2 was to implement renewable generation sources through solar, through hydro, through greener sources of power generation. And so if we also are able to unlock liquidity that we're being owed, we would also be able to make significant investments in converting some of our power plants to combined cycle so that we can operate in a more eco-friendly manner.
Which one would you say you are ready for now? Is it hydro or is it solar-enabled energy generation?
Both actually. We have enormous hydro potentials up north. We also have enormous solar potentials up north. And very recently, for instance, I visited the industrial cluster, the Chalawa industrial cluster in Kano, where we're collaborating with Naseni to deploy a solar solution, cost-effective solution, because those industries are off-grid. So we're deploying a solar solution that would enable them become grid integrated.
I mean, there are those who will say, despite all of this investment, and the Minister of Power says that we need, he mentioned a certain figure that he says we need every year to be able to get stable power supply. But the struggle Nigerians have in having stable power supply, and even in the cost of it, from your own, because as a GENCO, you have your own limitation. What do you think could help Nigeria get to the dream of stable 24/7 power supply?
I'm going to say this very factually and very dispassionately. The truth is that electricity, power generation is not cheap. So it's one of two things. Nigerians should either be prepared to pay optimally for quality, uninterruptible electricity, or the government should be prepared to subsidize optimally to enable the GENCOs generate efficiently and transmit to the last mile in the most cost-effective manner.
So if we want power stable, we need to start thinking of paying more. That's the reality.
Not necessarily. Not necessarily, because the subsidies, for instance, can still be applied more effectively and more smartly through smart meters. Yes, so you have AI-enabled meters now that can actually apply subsidy on consumption, you know, and that way it's even more accountable. So the government can still apply subsidies and in a more cost-effective manner, actually, and then electricity will be delivered optimally.
Your company covers about 8 to 10 states, is that right?
We have 10 power plants located in 10 states.
In 10 states. Yes. So for you to deliver, for example, to generate power or electricity that can serve these 10 states, what capacity do you need?
It depends on the power needs of those states. It depends on the load.
Has there been an audit of what those 10 states will need?
Well, now that, you know, the states are transitioning to state electricity regulation, I believe that these are some of the load studies that would now be carried out to understand the scale of the needs, you know, in those states. But for now, I don't have, as a GENCO, I mean, it's not in my purview to have that information. You know, ours is to generate, to transmit, to get it to the end user and to collect our revenue. Naturally,
all of your power plants, what will be your total generating capacity?
Total installed capacity is 3,500 megawatts.
Yeah.
Yes, but as at date, we have about 2,000 megawatts as mechanically available.
Okay. What the remnant? Where are they?
There's some power plants that are undergoing maintenance, some power plants that are still under completion.
And some are like 30-something years old?
No. NIPP was incorporated in 2005, so this is actually our 20 years in business.
No, I'm saying you inherited inherited some of the power plants that have been in existence.
No. Those power plants were all built
under this project.
Yes, under the NIPP, the National Integrated Power Project.
So, on a final note, you are a face of this government, either you like it or not. Yes, you are appointed in this role to go and deliver. And one of the deliveries of President Bola Tinubu, based on his promises, to provide affordable and double, actually. He said he will double what is met on the ground. The question is that, under this government, are you guys doing it, or you have failed Nigerians?
Sure, we haven't failed Nigerians. You know, transformation, reforms don't happen overnight, right? We're steadily making progress. Under this same administration, we've hit a peak generation of 6,000 megawatts. I mean, that's a historical milestone. On the 2nd of March, you can go and verify, we hit a peak generation of 6,000 megawatts.
Coming from about less than 3,000 sometimes.
And we're steadily progressing, you know, and ensuring that we can sustain this. The most important thing is that Mr. President has very graciously laid the right foundations, the right legislative foundations, the right policy foundations, and the right regulatory foundations. As you know, upon assumption of office, he insisted on the passing of the Electricity Act, which has essentially decentralized and liberalized the sector. And so we're now able to transact business bilaterally. We're now able to think out of the box, to be more innovative, more competitive, and of course that will drive growth. And we're not losing sight of the fact at NDPHC that access to electricity
because they're supposed to be making money.
Making money. We're generating revenue for the company and for our
That's what I'm saying. Yes. Are you profitable?
Not yet, because we're being owed.
They should pay up, isn't it? Jennifer Adigisha is a managing director of the Niger Delta Power Holding Company. And I'm very excited when I see women who are excelling in their endeavors, especially on Politics Today, when we don't have sufficient supply of women guests on the program. But it's a pleasure having you, and I wish you the very best.
Thank you very much, Shil. The pleasure is always mine.
Let there be light.
And there shall be light.